Hello guys, welcome back to the crew RMD's story. That's what we are going to do in this video and the upcoming videos. Sorta going over my story. How did I end up starting in this game and working my way up in the game? What did I do first? What did I do next? Got noticed in summits, got involved in teams, worked my way all up, got invitations for technical tests and closed alphas and even real life events. How did it all go? How did it all go from being like a complete noob in this game to knowing quite a lot about this game and involved in the community and stuff like that? That's sorta what we are going to do. First, the facts. We are looking at my Steam library here and we see the crew complete edition, more or less. Seeing I'm a competitive player, I like a bit of challenge, I like a bit of competition, which also meant I was not really that interesting at first in the crew. Because, yeah, it is what it is. It was a big map, but other than that, you had PvP, which is pretty much the core of any racing game, I guess, like racing other people. That was available, but other than that, yeah, you had some skill tests and you had some this and some that, but not much for competition or something like that available. So at first I wasn't interested. I did also not buy the crew basic game. I only bought the game when it was released, the Wild Run expansion, after 1 year, and sorta bought it in January, and then as you can see here, most of these dates say 12th February 2016. That's the first day I started playing. If I'm not mistaken, that was a Thursday. For some reason I remember I started playing on a Thursday, and then we went from there, resulting in hours of playtime 4,146. That's where we are today. Next up is the Crew 2, of course, coming on June 29th. As you can see, pre-ordered it already on November the 25th, 2017. Pretty early, you would say, but yeah. Meanwhile, stuff happened and I was convinced that was good enough to buy the game. Which brings us to the game itself. February 2016, I had looked at some footage and Wild Run competition summit. We had new specs, drag monster drift, bikes were available, and on top of that we still had PvP, we had the big map, we had the skill test. So suddenly there was a lot of things to do, and there was also some competition and challenges involved. So the game became interesting. Interesting enough for me to buy the complete edition at that moment. That's what it was, what it's called at that moment, I think. And that was the crew base game, the crew Wild Run, and the season pass, which included the 4 DLC car packs and the 5 cars that were only available for crew credits, and the 2 exclusive cars, being the Ferrari 458 and the McLaren 12C. So we start the game in this thing, the Race Spec Ford Raptor. That is more or less how you get like dropped into this game. In the fields behind you in the Midwest here, on the Great Lakes, southeast of Detroit, you have like all sort of fields, and there's some water, and you jump all over the place, and that's how you get more or less dropped into the game. And then still don't know why that was, but for some reason you were involved in a police chase. That was like the tutorial race. You were involved in a police chase, although the real police chases only brought it in 2016 with calling all units. But yeah, about the expansions, we will come back to that later in either in this video or in one of the next videos. Now, you sort of dropped out of that mission. Basically, you had to chase off the cops and get rid of them and finish this thing, and then you ended up here. And if I'm not mistaken, it sort of pointed you to the left here, and there will be, it still is, a data station number 1. You got this thing for free. There are 5 data stations. It will explain to you that there are data stations all over the map and that you need to find them. well, it will not do that now, but when you first ever come here, it will do that. And it sort of scoops the environment, and it unlocks landmarks, skill tests, stuff, anything that is surrounding this particular data station. You get this one for free. The one behind us here, you get that one for free, which is also the reason why you have 6 data stations in the Midwest and only 5 in the other states. Because you have to look all 5 in each of the states, you have to look for those things to sort of unlock the map, because that's what you also have a problem with when you come into this game the first time. The whole map is covered in blue squares, and you have to unlock it either by fast traveling square by square, because you cannot go any farther. You can only fast travel to points where you already been at one point in time, and also the surroundings. The next thing, they sort of want you to drive here, and in that barn you will find the performance spec of the Chevrolet Camaro RS 1969, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, meanwhile I have so many cars, it's probably going to take a while before I find that thing, which is of course on the bottom of this. Is it? Yeah, this is one. Here in this barn you will find this thing, of course not at 1497 as it is now, but at 529 most likely. Since it is a performance spec, you sort of get this thing, and that's sort of where trouble starts. You drive to Detroit, or Zoe on the smartphone. That smartphone is that thing on the right there. Zoe is gonna call you. Well, at first she's gonna call you, and she's gonna call you again, and at some point she's getting on your nerves because she keeps bothering you throughout the whole story. And not only her, but also a few other characters that you come across the story. They're constantly bothering you on the smartphone for something. And eventually, you probably will end up coming to the point that you're gonna shut her up by putting her down, more or less. You can put off the voice of Zoe, and then she stops bothering you. But it also takes a while before people realize that they could actually put her up. So you sort of have to go to Detroit, and you will meet up with your brother. Seeing you are sort of representing Alex Taylor, you meet up with your brother Dayton. He gets shot, you get blamed for it, you end up in jail, and trouble starts. And then you meet Zoe for the first time, and she sort of makes you a deal. You need to go after Coburn, the corrupt FBI agent, or CIA, whatever he is. FBI, I think, and Zoe is CIA. And then, of course, the guy that shot your brother, Schiff. That's the guy you want to go through, and that more or less is the beginning of the story. But of course, they sort of gave you a car to do all this, and meanwhile you're in jail. So yeah, you come out of jail, you don't have a car. It's a bit of a problem. So you think about it, and of course, you have no other choice than to go for it and accept the story mode. Problem number 1, at least for many people, is the story. Well, not really. But I never get that why people do that, but some people, they do a few missions of the story and then they drop out. In my case, seeing it is my story that I'm sort of telling here, I realized, oh, there's a story here, we have to go for the story. Of course, first you need to get a car on the dealers here. You have the option 2010 Camaro, 2011 Mustang, 2012 Challenger, or a 2013 Nissan 370Z. So it is a matter of choices. Knowing racing games, most of the time the American cars have no handling. So for me the choice was pretty obvious. Car number 1 in the game, the Nissan 370Z. Why do I say car number 1? For me personally, because the other 3 were Americans, and usually they lack handling, and they are boats, and they are only have enough power, but they have so much power that they are wheel spinning all over the place. So I thought, no, I'm not gonna risk that. I'm gonna go for the 370Z. So that was more or less my starter's car. Problem number 2. Full stock. You can't do anything with a full stock except for driving around on the map. And there are some achievements linked to it, more or less. You can drive 5 miles or 8 kilometers in 40 original cars of the game to get some sort of award. You can do that in the full stock. Also something people never understood is that you can also do that in other specs, but most people did that probably in the full stocks. But like I said, you cannot do much with it. So they sort of point you to the street tuners, and yeah, that's already where it starts, because the story, to put it in short, it's like a tutorial to get acquainted with everything within the game. In this case, the street tuners. So you realize, oh, they have different specs, they have different tuners, so you need to get this thing. So you buy it, and from that moment, although it is a different spec, in a way it's two cars. Because you still have the full stock as well, so you have a full stock 370 and you have a street spec. And off you go. You can change the color, you can change the rims. Also there I didn't bother too much, because always keep in mind, if you're new to a game, you need to get bugs. No matter which game it is, at some point in time you're gonna need bugs to buy other cars or something, so I always try to save up as much as possible in the beginning and don't spend too much on colors and rims, and I will, most of the time, if you go to a story or something, here and there you will unlock colors and rims and bumps, so yeah. Which brings us to story number 1. I'm not gonna go through the whole story, don't worry, but just for the sake of it, restart this one first mission. The driving test.
You've been inside for a long time. Let's see if you remember how to do this.
This race is again a tutorial race, and it's more or less yeah, gets you acquainted with the handling of cars and stuff like that. And so he's sort of trying to give you a hard time, and meanwhile you have like all kind of pop-ups coming on your screen to press this button for throttle, press this button for brake, and then you realize that you also have nitro, which you can use. Not only that, it is also the finish line is more or less a tutorial, in that way that you get acquainted with your first headquarters at the end of the race, and that's sort of why it's called driving test. And while you're driving, she's babbling about on what's going on, and that you're gonna take down Coburn, and that you cannot kill him because otherwise you're gonna get back behind the barns and stuff like that. It's not really, yeah, not really even part of the full story. It's also one of those cars when you put them at 1497.
I've set up an HQ. We need somewhere safe, somewhere you're
Gets a bit too much grip, and you actually makes you slide all over the place. Mission number 1 is complete, and then you get like a platinum medal for it, which will not be the case the first time you do this, because platinum is not available. And also that they sort of explain when you go through the story, and also that is something that some people do not understand. They did only a few parts of the missions, and then they go complain on the forums or on Facebook or on Reddit or on Steam community or whatever. Hey, but it's not working for me, how do you do this, I'm not getting parts, how can you get the platinum parts? And yeah, if you actually would go through the story, as normally you should, but yeah, each play on their own of course, but yeah, for me it was pretty simple. I started playing on Thursday evening, I realized, oh, there is a story here, so I dropped everything else and I went to the story first. By Saturday evening, Sunday afternoon, something like that, I was through the story. And that more or less means that you have gone through all the stories. Seen in between, I did some skill tests as well. I was on level 50 already, not late, I think 1 or 2 missions into the West Coast, and I was already level 50. If you don't do the skill test and such on the side, you probably will take you a bit longer to one of the last missions to become level 50. But if you have finished everything in the story, you should be level 50. Also, that was already a problem for some people. They didn't bother about the story, and then they had a harder time leveling up, because then they had to go through skill tests, which doesn't give that much experience points, or they had to do some PvP races, which gives a problem for the people there. Because yeah, if you only do like the Midwest and then go to the East Coast, then you also unlock PvP, multiplayer racing, which is one of the core features of any driving racing game, I think. Keep that in mind, Ubisoft Ivory Tower. So, coming here, you have a street spec and a dirt spec available in the East Coast, sort of level 10, 12 you are then. You unlock PvP, and then very often you see people go to PvP, and that is a big problem, because then they show up with a street and a dirt spec, and everybody else in the lobby is restricted to street and dirt, because that one new guy shows up there with only 2 cars. So whatever you do in a game, go through the story first, make sure that you, like in this case, you should have gone through the story, that you had at least 1 car in each of the specs, would make it way easier, and also way more enjoyable for other people. If you actually go to PvP and you have at least a car in each spec, then people can choose whatever race they want. Now they are sometimes restricted to those first 2 specs, because some new guy shows up and he doesn't have any of the other specs. It's annoying as hell. So you go through the story, you reach level 50, which also means you unlock platinum medals and platinum parts and stuff like that. And then once you have done that, the moment where you reach level 50, you will get all awards popping up saying you have a gold mission in platinum in this one, and in this one, and in this one. Depending on how fast you went through those missions. Some of the missions you will have platinum already after reaching level 50, but it sort of goes back. You reach level 50 somewhere in the West Coast, and then it will say, "Oh, but you did such a good score or time that you already have platinum in this and that mission," and a couple of others will still be on gold or even silver. So you have to go back there if you want everything at platinum, which is sort of the second thing that I did. I went back through the story. At the same time, I thought, well, if I have to go back through the story, I will completely do it again, and that was sort of the first videos that you will see on my channel as well. Because at that moment, I was a new guy, although I had an account from 2013, I did not really post any videos myself. I just made an account to make it easier to subscribe to other channels and see what was going on. And from that moment on, I started posting videos. So that's sort of how RaceMasterDave got involved in YouTube. So we went through the story, I did everything again, and put everything on platinum. By that time we probably was like 4 or 5 days into the game, because I only concentrated on the story and on nothing else. Because we went through the story, you also on the road occasionally ran into a skill test, realizing, oh, there are skill tests here on the map. And there are a lot of them. I realized that pretty much when I put the filter on skills here, you see all of these skills, and I thought, oh my god, that's a lot to do. So I kinda skipped that for the second part, and I went to exploration first. Because already in the beginning, as you saw in this video, you get this data station thing for free. But there are 5 more data stations in the Midwest and also in all of the other states. So that's more or less the second thing that I did. Try to unlock the whole data station situation as fast as possible. So I went out there exploring the map, looking for the data stations, at the same time looking for the the car wrecks, as they were called. And so yeah, that's what I did second. So maybe 1.5 weeks into the game, I had done the story, and I had done all the car wrecks. I found the data stations, and so on. So next up was like upgrading cars, and that's where I went back to the skills. I put a filter, for instance, on one of those skills. Doesn't matter that much on which you put it. And that's more or less what I did next. Put it on speed. Start at skill number 1. Speed skill number 1, speed skill number 2 in Detroit, and then move to Chicago, because they also sort of go like the story from Detroit to Chicago to St. Louis, and then the whole surrounding. The same goes for the skill test. So you have like, I don't know, bunch of these skill tests here, which are like low numbers. The higher numbers will be up here, and then you go to the west coast where you will have the highest numbers and also the most bucks. The skill tests in the west coast will give you more bucks than the ones in the midwest. So I took my street spec Nissan 370Z and I went to do this speed skills, and once that was done I went to do all of the escapes. I think it was like yeah, somewhere in the south doing the escape, which was like the second skill test that I did, that I more or less unlocked everything for the street spec car. So my car was at $12.99. I had level 50 parts with 4 different bonuses: speed, acceleration, grip, and handling, and brake. I mean, and they were also, by doing that, they were also unlocked in the street tuners, and I could just buy them for the rest of the specs. At that moment, when it was upgraded, I switched to a dirt spec. I continued doing the escapes. I did the same for hill climb, jump, precision, race line, scramble, and everything else. So I used 3, 4, 5 different specs, did all of these skill tests, tried to put it on platinum, and that more or less was what I did, like in week number 2 and 3 of playing the game, resulting in sorta in this. 3 weeks into the game, all of the skill tests were on platinum, all of the story missions were on platinum, all the data stations were found, all the car wrecks were found, and then I needed to move on. But yeah, while doing the story you get a little bit of bugs here and a little bit of bugs there, also in the skill test. But I thought, yeah, that's not going to be good enough. So I, of course, also passed by a couple of these landmark things, and every time you go in there and take a look on the cutscene, which you can basically, yeah, it's a cutscene that you can actually cut as well. But very often when you come out of something, like here, you come out of the headquarters, you will see something, either which was a car wreck or a data station. You will pick up a signal. That's sort of how you found a lot of these things as well, because the stories were such a way printed into the map that you always found something when you came out of it. Maybe not immediately, but if you drive for like 100 yards or 100 meters, you will run into something or you will pick up a signal. That's sort of how it was. So, and if you, for instance, like here, you enter, you get like a little cutscene. You can even press escape. You don't even need to watch the whole thing. And if you came out of it, you had 2,000 bucks. So that is sort of what I did next. I visited all the landmarks, every single one of them, and getting like 2,000 bucks every single time. If you've done all that, so you have the story missions, everything on platinum, skill test, everything on platinum, you found everything on this exploration map, data stations, car wrecks, and also the landmarks, then you probably will have something between 1 million and 1.5 million bucks in-game currency. You also have crew credits, which is the second currency next to it. Which in the beginning, yeah, you sort of had some DLC packs that you could buy with crew credits if you wanted to. Of course, later on you realize that it's something stupid to do, because you can just win those things in the summits as well. 5,000 crew credits in qualifiers and 20,000 crew credits in summits itself, the monthly summits, that is. But yeah, that will be for the next video. The continuation of the RMD story will, yeah, I don't know, in a couple of more videos. We'll see how many videos we will do. Because in the next video where we're gonna go is probably have a look on PvP and then move to the summit. That is also sort of how I did it. But that will be for next time. This was sort of the introduction. Let's say the first 3 weeks of playing this game back in 2016. This is more or less what I have done. I will see you guys in the next one, and bye for now.